Today, we are diving into a really big question for the future of Web3. How can, say, a city, or really any local community, build its very own sovereign digital economy without just, cutting itself off from the entire rest of the world? It's this tricky puzzle of being both independent and connected. And the solution, well, it might just change how we think about blockchains altogether.
And really, it all boils down to this one question. Are we building towards one single dominant mega blockchain that tries to do everything for everyone? Or is the future more of a vibrant, messy, beautiful ecosystem of countless specialized chains, all somehow working together like they're one? This is the core problem we're going to unpack today. Because, let's be honest, right now, the Web3 world kind of feels like a bunch of powerful but totally separate digital islands. You've got these huge continents like Ethereum and Solana, right? And they each have their own rules, their own assets, their own communities. And trying to move between them, it is not exactly a smooth ride. This fragmentation, it just creates friction and, frankly, it limits the amazing things we could be building if they all just talk to each other.
To make this super concrete, let's use an example. Imagine your city decides to create its own digital token. We'll call it an energy credit to reward people for generating solar power. Now, they want total control, total sovereignty over their system. But here's the catch. They also want you, a citizen, to be able to trade those credits for stuff on, let's say, Ethereum. So how do they build that bridge without getting stuck writing a ton of complex, brittle, custom code?
Well, the solution that's emerging is to stop thinking about building more islands and start thinking about building a whole new kind of operating system for Web3. See, Anoma isn't just another blockchain trying to compete with Ethereum. Nope. Instead, it's designed to be a unifying layer, a distributed OS built to connect all of these different islands into one cohesive network. So the most important thing to get is this fundamental shift in thinking. Today, when you use a blockchain, you have to give it a very specific list of instructions, the how. You have to say, take this token, send it to this contract, call this function with these parameters. Anoma completely flips that around and lets you just focus on the what. You simply declare what you want the end result to be. Okay, let's really look at this. On the left, you've got the old way, the how. It's a pain. You've got to figure out every single step. Find the right marketplace, set your price, approve the contract, execute the trade. It's complicated. Now look at the right. This is the new way, the what. You just say what you want. I want to trade 10 of my city energy credits for at least one concert ticket before Friday. That's it. You declare your goal and you let the system figure out how to get it done. And this declaration, this simple statement of what you want, it's called an intent. It's the absolute core building block of this whole system. It's not a command, it's a wish list. It's a message you sign and just broadcast out to the network saying, hey, here's what I want. Can anyone make this happen for me under these conditions? This quote from co-founder Adrian Brink is just the perfect analogy. I mean, think about it. Before Windows, you had to know exactly what kind of computer hardware you were running to use software. Windows came along and created this abstraction layer. It became the operating system that let any app run on any machine. Anoma is trying to do the exact same thing for Web3, to be the OS so your intent can interact with any blockchain under the hood. So let's peek under the hood of this new Web3 operating system. At the very top, you've got the desktop. That's where you, the user, interacting with apps to create your intents. Then, those intents get broadcast out across the intent net, which is the network layer connecting everybody. And finally, you have the motherboard, this incredibly powerful base layer that connects to all the different hardware, or in our case, all the different blockchains. The internet, it really works like a massive global matchmaking service. It's a peer-to-peer network where everyone can just shout what they want into the void. You send out your intent to trade energy credits for a ticket, and maybe on the other side of the planet, someone else is broadcasting their intent to sell a ticket. It is the ultimate discovery layer for what people actually want. So who's listening to all this chatter? A network of specialized agents called solvers. You can think of them as these hyper-efficient digital assistants. They are constantly scanning the intent net, looking for intents they can help with. And then they all compete with each other to find the absolute best, most efficient way to make your wish come true, bundling together all the complex transactions needed behind the scenes. Now, the motherboard is the secret sauce that makes all this cross-chain magic possible. It's basically a hardware abstraction layer. Imagine it has a whole set of universal adapters. They're called protocol adapters.
Each one is designed to plug Anoma directly into a different blockchain, letting it understand their rules and settle transactions on any chain, whether that's Ethereum, Base, Arbitrum, or some tiny sovereign chain.
Okay, so with that whole architecture in mind, let's circle all the way back to our original problem. How does our city create its sovereign energy credit economy and actually connect it to the rest of the world? Well, with Anoma, the path becomes surprisingly clear. First, the city just launches its own self-sovereign Anoma instance where they get to set all their own local rules. Second, they define their local resources, the energy credits. Third, they just use a protocol adapter to plug their little local chain into the massive global liquidity of Ethereum. And boom, that's it. Citizens can now express intents like, I'll trade 50 of my local energy credits for USDC on Ethereum, and the network of solvers just makes it happen. Sovereignty and connectivity, all solved.
And this is where it gets really mind-bending. Because what this shows is that the power of this model goes way, way beyond just finance and trading. What this unlocks is a whole new era of complex multi-party coordination that was just too hard or even impossible to pull off before.
I mean, just think about the possibilities here. You could coordinate an entire energy grid, matching producers and consumers in real time to stop waste. Communities could create time banks where people trade their skills and hours directly. You could build these incredibly sophisticated matchmaking systems for jobs, or verify ecological credits from thousands of different projects. You could even optimize global freight logistics to make sure fewer trucks are driving empty. These are all huge coordination problems that an intent-based system is just perfectly designed to solve. And hey, this isn't just some theory for the distant future. This ecosystem is already starting to take shape. A program called Intense Initiates is already funding dozens of teams that are building these exact kinds of applications right now. For instance, you've got projects like TerraTwin creating systems for verifiable eco-credits, while SwissDAO is building a framework for matchmaking in job markets. The future is literally being built as we speak.
So now we can finally answer that question we started with. The future probably isn't one giant chain, and it's not a million isolated ones either. The answer is a million sovereign chains that, through a shared operating system, can act as one single, unified, interconnected network. But what's the really big, audacious goal here? Well, if you can match any want with any other want on a global scale, the system starts to look less and less like traditional finance and a lot more like a super efficient global-scale barter system. You just don't need a single type of money as the middleman for every single transaction anymore. And that leads us to this final, really powerful idea from the Anoma vision paper. For thousands of years, money was the best tool we had to solve a basic problem, the double coincidence of wants. You know, the problem that I have apples, but you want bananas, and you have bananas, but I want oranges. Money was a patch for that problem. But the question Anoma leaves us with is this. What happens when we finally have enough computing power to find those complex chains of wants that connect all of us directly? What happens when we don't need the patch anymore? That's the future this is all aiming for.